At AV&R, our mission is to humanize robotics. We decided to create this podcast series to help you demystify the world of robotics and discover what some of the brightest minds in the field are doing. Welcome to Robotics for All Podcasts by AV&R.
Frank is the founder and president of Quantum Robotic Systems, a Toronto-based robotics startup specializing in stair-climbing devices that allow people to carry heavy items up and down stairs in an easier, faster, and safer way. In our conversation, we talked about the latest news coming out of Toronto with the status of their ban on sidewalk robots, his approach to climbing stairs, and how he hopes this helps people overcome the barriers and hazards posed by stairs in their homes. Hope everyone enjoys the show. Here we go.
Hi, Frank. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, Michael. My pleasure.
Great. Well, let's jump right into it. Why don't you start off? Just tell me a little bit about Quantum Robotic Systems and why you started the journey into robotics.
Sure. Boy, how much time do you have? Quantum Robotic Systems, or QRS, is a startup that I founded, and we make autonomous mobile robots. Our focus is on a stair climbing service robot that we invented, and its full name is the Robotic Stair Climbing Assistant, or better known as ROSA. And ROSA is our product aimed for seniors who seek to age in place so they can stay in their homes longer, because it can carry items up and down stairs for you. And we've spun off another product from it called QB, which is our smaller service robot. And the company really started around the idea of the stair climber. I had actually, it happened while I was mentoring a robotics team at my old high school. I got involved in FIRST Robotics, and I had this idea out of the blue about a robot that can climb stairs. And that's when it all started.
Okay, stair climbing. That's an interesting one. Is there, and full disclosure, I have one of your QBs, and I love it. So I am a big fan. So you talked about, aging seniors in home, and looking at the design of your robot, it's pretty ingenious, and I see other robotics companies out, trying to go after four-legged robots or bipedal robots. Maybe just tell us a little bit about, your approach and why it was important, the key features of what you were trying to accomplish.
Right. So you touched on a few important ideas there. There are other stair climber robots out there, and you also listed some of the approaches that they take. They're the famous ones, the ones that are anthropomorphic, where they're emulating humans climbing up and down stairs. So I guess the most prominent examples are Atlas from Boston Dynamics and Osimo from Honda. So they look like people climbing stairs, and so they try to climb stairs in a bipedal way, the way people do. And then there are the quadrupeds like Spot, that can climb stairs using its articulated legs. We went the opposite way. We were looking for a robot as an appliance type approach. So it's not meant to emulate a person or an animal. Its goal is to climb stairs with the simplest possible mechanism. So because we wanted to keep it small, we wanted to keep it lightweight, but first and foremost, we wanted to keep it inexpensive. So hand in hand with that is doing away with complex mechanisms, complex control systems. So part of the idea is, what's the simplest possible mechanical solution that also keeps the payload level? So if you put, say, a laundry basket or bin on top, and you want to keep that bin level all the way up the stairs, what's the solution? And can you do it, say, with one motor? And we found a solution. So we're coming at it from the opposite end of the spectrum. not a humanoid robot, but a robot as an appliance, a toaster that can climb stairs.
Right, like a purpose-built type of system.
Right. I mean, in the sense that its climbing mechanism is meant to be very utilitarian, but it is multi-purpose. So you can if you're using it in the home, it can carry things not only from up and down stairs, but from room to room. It's a full mobile robot. You mentioned QB before, and thank you very much for your support behind our product. But Rosa is actually built on top of QB. QB was originally a spin-off from Rosa, and it is the drive mechanism that Rosa sits on. But it's a robot onto itself. So we decided to market it as a separate product.
Yeah, very interesting. So you mentioned, how long ago did you start up QRS?
We were incorporated in the end of 2016, okay. But it was not a full-time venture until about, I would say, end of 2019. So the incorporation happened mostly in and around the IP protection and making sure that the patents had a home. But things didn't get into full-time activities until the end of 2019, beginning of 2020.
Okay, and you've launched QB on the robot shop, so
correct.
People can go out there and grab one for themselves.
Yes, please, or two.
What stage is Rosa at?
Rosa is, we're hoping to have the first commercial unit available by the spring of 2023 if we hustle. We have a big push to getting the first version of Rosa that can go into people's homes in that time frame. So it'll have all the features that QB has. So it will be autonomous. It will be able to follow paths. You'll be able to drive it. Same payload capacity, actually a little bit more. We're aiming for 100 pounds for the release. And excuse me, we I still have a few stages to go. We're improving the climbing mechanism and its capacity because our previous prototype didn't have 100-pound capacity. We're right. We're expanding on that, and we're trying to make it climb faster. One of the things that we learned during our trials between last summer and now is that it climbs fine, but it climbs slower than a person right now.
Okay.
So and if you're technically minded or an engineer, you can see that's okay as long as the amount of weight that it's carrying is more than what you carry as a person. So if it can carry 100 pounds but goes a bit slower, that's a good trade-off. However, from a marketing point of view, the first thing people notice is, oh, can it climb any faster than that? And one of the technical issues that we're facing is the faster you make it climb, you get into dynamic effects that are not obvious when you climb slowly. So things like vibration become more important the faster you climb. So we're trying to weed out those issues right now in time for the next version, again, which will hopefully be ready for early adopters in spring of 2023.
Okay. Now, just to maybe touch a little bit on safety, because you're going into the home and it's a little different than the environment that I'm used to. So in the manufacturing and the industrial space, we've got a lot of standards that govern the use of robots. They've been using robots for 50 years. In this, now in the home, we've got maybe a vacuum running around, vacuuming and stuff like that. So how is it, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with manufacturing, but what are the key things people looking at robotics in their home that they can expect in terms of safety?
Right. So we're breaking new ground, I think, on the stair climbing side, because we're really, doing, we may be the first a residential or home robot that can that's expressly meant to climb stairs. So there's a whole issue around reliability of climbing the stairs. But if you just take a step back and look at just robots in general operating in your home and what standards apply, the approach we've taken is we've looked at some standards, and please don't ask me to rhyme off the numbers because
no problem.
But for example, the requirements for stopping distance and object detection. So we've incorporated those aspects of the standards into our machines. So we have an array of LiDAR sensors around our device that they're looking for collisions, but they're also looking to locate the robot at the same time. So they're dual use sensors. So from the safety point of view, if it detects an obstacle or a person in its path, it's programmed to stop within a safe stopping distance. Its maximum speed is 1 meter per second, so it's not barreling through your home. It's operating at a what would be considered, I think, a reasonably safe speed. So we're trying to adopt standards that evolved out of industrial applications, and in lieu of the equivalent standards in the home, adopt those. Now there are service robots out there, and I'm not 100% sure what standards have evolved around service robots. I'm talking about companion robots, the ones that look like cute little
social robots, kind of.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So there are no doubt standards around how they can interact with people, but the bottom line safety issues like collision avoidance, what power supply are you using? We're battery operated, so we are in the same classification, I would assume, as a power tool. We use exactly the same batteries. So that's just in general the kind of things that we're trying to adhere to. The stair climbing is another kettle of fish. We have developed heavier lift versions of this machine for the moving industry, but somebody's always holding on to the device while it's climbing. So there's a person always ready to assist if there's trouble. I mean, the design is such that if power is cut to the machine, it is stable, so it'll just come to rest on the stairs without going anywhere. So that's the intent, that if the power system goes away or the control system fails, it'll come mechanically to rest on a stair without tumbling off. So that's one of the design features we tried to incorporate it. But can you defeat that? Can somebody push the robot off a set of stairs? Well, yes, they can. And that's why we haven't moved ahead, for example, with our stair climbing wheelchair. We've prototyped one up, and that was based on our heavy lift moving cart, because we were frequently asked, could you lift a person up and down the stairs in the same manner? And to answer that question, we built a prototype wheelchair. And yes, we can certainly take people up and down the stairs. Do we want to at this moment from a liability point of view? Not yet. I wouldn't want to release that product until we are 100% certain that it can never, ever be pushed or otherwise defeated from its purpose and fall off a set of stairs. It's one thing if you fall carrying a laundry basket. It's completely other matter if you fall when you're carrying a person, obviously. So from a standards point of view, we have not yet found a UL standard that applies directly to us, because we don't fit any glove. We did do some consultation with a testing lab to see if that was truly the case. And other than the issues around the batteries and issues around EM noise, we have not yet found any regulation that would be a barrier to us. That's not to say it's not coming. That's not to say one has to be created especially for us. I hope not, but that might be the case. but we're very, very mindful of safety on stairs. We don't want to see our machine ever fall off stairs.
Yeah, yeah. Excuse me, I definitely understand that. So, you said startup or incorporation was 2016. Is that right? And then 2018 full time. How has it been?
20, yeah.
20. Okay, how has it been? Having a robotics startup in Canada and Toronto. I'd love to hear a little bit about, what are we doing great in Canada? What are some of the things you wish we had more support on?
Well, there actually, you mentioned Toronto in there very prominently, and that's an important thing to mention. Just to back up, I mean, we're in a if there's a microscopic startup category, we would be it. We're quite small. We're just started generating revenue, so I wouldn't say we're pre-revenue, but we're pretty early in the revenue generation stage. On the plus side, I think Canada is nicely set up from an R&D support point of view, from things like SR&D tax credits, IRAP, other funding programs, and their specialty programs. ROSA, in fact, got its initial funding from AgeWell, which is a National Center of Excellence, and they're dedicated to technology, including robotics technology, aimed at allowing people to stay in their homes longer as they age. So and they have multiple themes in their research areas, but one of them is definitely in robotics. So, and we're seeing more of that. We see that there is a prioritization of robotics, at least from my narrow window into the larger robotics world. So I see Canada in general being a supportive place. Bringing me to Toronto, I'm just and Ontario generally is, I would say, R&D positive.
Okay.
We can always use more. I mean,
Right.
Obviously, we've made good use of programs like MyTax, which is that helps put students from the graduate level all the way up to PhD level into placements in companies. And again, we've availed ourselves of that. So generally, it's a good climate from the government, grant and tax credit support point of view. Different jurisdictions from a regulation point of view, it might be a sticking point. And this brings me to Toronto. We are not a delivery robot service. We don't operate generally outdoors, although we can envision a version of ROSA that can operate on a sidewalk, taking deliveries in, for example, from a delivery van to the front porch. Whenever you have robots interacting with the public on a public right of way, there has to be some kind of regulation. And you've seen this with delivery robots around the world. You've seen the Starship delivery robots, which I think are world leaders now, in a great number of cities. But and in different jurisdictions are looking at it carefully, and they've put regulations in place, so they recognize that so long as the robot has the appropriate safety features and conforms to the appropriate safety regulations, then it's safe to use them. Toronto has taken kind of the opposite approach, and they've banned all robots on public right-of-ways flat out, no exceptions, no ifs, ands, or buts. So they're running contrary, in my opinion, to what other large cities are doing. So it's, from a startup point of view, that's a shame, because we have, and as you can imagine, and you've probably been in this position yourself, it's always easiest to demonstrate your technology in your own backyard.
Yep.
So if you have a city that is friendly to innovation and will support it, it's always better to be able to, say, deploy your early prototypes or beta tests, have beta test sites in your own hometown. Saves money. We don't have to support something that's halfway around the world. We no longer have that option. We have to go further afield to be able to test our machine if they were to run on public right-of-ways. And again, QRS is not affected as other companies who are involved in last mile delivery. I mean, we have or I don't want to say had a company, Tiny Mile. They were really the focus of that ban. Yeah. And a lot of people in the robotics community and the general public, when the ban was first proposed, lent their support to Tiny Mile because, again, I think the decision process was quite flawed. They have since left. They have since brought their operations south of the border. And this is exactly what many of us predicted would happen, that if Toronto becomes I don't want to say anti-robot, but well, let's, for the lack of any other better term, an anti-robot city, the high-tech companies that are making robots in the area are going to leave, and that's what's happening. So I think Tiny Mile is operating with the full support of the city in Miami, and I think they're in South Carolina, I believe Charlotte. Okay. So the local support is important for small startups as well.
Okay. Yeah, and I had talked with Bern Grush when that whole event unfolded, and he came on the podcast, and as a kind of a way to mitigate some of the things, the city of Toronto, as I understood it, propped up a pilot project at one end of town, in the exhibition place, if I remember right, where you could test new technology under pilot. Has that been taken off the ground? And did I see that you had participated? Yeah. How was that?
We jumped all over that because my impression was that instead of letting robots have free reign in the city, they were going to do a pilot program where they have a restricted area and let them be evaluated. That's at least my impression when they first talked about this. I think it's Transportation Innovation Challenge. That's right. That's right. What they were, and we immediately signed up, and we did participate. We actually demonstrated both QB and Rosa. And from our point of view, it was not only a showcase of our technology, but an opportunity to demonstrate that robots can operate safely in urban environments. And it was all a great concept. The downside is it was a one-off event over the course of, well, it was because there were 6 participants, it was scheduled for morning and afternoon, depending on what your availability was. So over the course of a part of a week, they evaluated these 6 companies, but then that's it. There's no opportunity for follow-up. There's no permanent testing ground. There's no plan for how to bring robotics into the public right-of-ways. There's no plan for regulation. In fact, again, I don't want to sound like I'm on a soapbox, but I did schedule a presentation for a committee that looks at accessibility, and it's been a driving force in getting the ban in place. So I took the opportunity to sign up so that I could give my perspective and try to change some minds. I got bumped from that meeting. I've not been invited back, and the whole issue of robots on Toronto sidewalks has, as far as I know, not been rescheduled for consideration by City Council. So yes, they did offer this, this TIC event, but it was, let's say, underwhelming in the sense that it was a one-off. It didn't go anywhere, And I'm happy we participated, but I wish the city would follow through with this idea, because we're going to be left behind.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what other how other cities are tackling. I'm not sure what how the urban robot environment is in, say, Montreal.
Yeah.
But I know that, you know, one by one, even Vision Zero cities that have made sidewalk safety and traffic safety a priority, they're letting their robots on their sidewalks. So
yeah.
The question remains, what's Toronto going to do?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure what Montreal's policy is. I know Montreal made a big effort to embrace AI, and they created a cluster and made a conscious effort to attract talent to the Montreal and Montreal area, which, you know, by itself can be a little bit controversial. You know, there's a lot of people that talk about the ethics of AI and, you know, the way it should be implemented and stuff, but, you know, they definitely fostered innovation as opposed to trying to avoid it. And just, you know, that's typically the way I look at things. You know, you want to be there guiding the way things get implemented and ensuring they're safe as opposed to shutting things down. And I see self-driving cars, you know,
right.
That's the big topic. Who has the right number of how many years we are away from it? But there is a huge effort for that coming. So we're going to have delivery vehicles that are self-driving in the future, and all the regulation around that. There's a lot of thinking to do, and the only way you can do it properly is by engaging and trying it and fostering that growth.
Well, that's exactly it. You have to, even if you're not prepared to overnight approve everything. And no, I don't think anybody is calling for that. Nobody's calling for a Wild West implementation of any technology that would have a serious impact on safety for pedestrians, for people using public rights of way. But on the other hand, if you don't have even a plan to evaluate it or roll it out, or under, you know, specific conditions, then you certainly give the impression that you're not prepared to innovate, that you're being a little bit closed-minded. And I've been told that it's a poor argument to make, but I disagree. I think we should be looking at other cities. We should be looking at other. I mean, Toronto has a big. Everybody else in Canada probably recognizes this. We have a big thing about being considered a world-class city all the time, and I think we have a inferiority complex. We're always comparing ourselves somewhere else to someplace else. But part of that kind of drives you to innovations. If you see other cities that are same size, same demographic, same climate, you look to them and say, what are they doing? And one example might be in public transportation. I think we often template ourselves or take examples from other cities that are ahead of the curve, and we follow, but we eventually adopt, technologies that are someone else may have paved the path for us. So I don't think it's a bad thing to look at other cities. And when you look around the world, you do see cities that have found places for robots in their community. I mean, it's I don't have to tell somebody from Montreal the problem of snow cleaning, and there are companies that have developed snow clearing robots. And if I had my way, I would see these everywhere. Over tomorrow, we're about to enter into snow season again, and one of the things, ironically, is that the snow clearing is a barrier to accessibility. People who are advocating against robots, their constituents are the ones that suffer most when their sidewalks aren't cleared, for example. So, here's an example of of contradictory interests that you're really shutting off one opportunity to help your constituents by this broad-based ban. Our robots, I mean, one of the use cases for QB is in a cooperative robotics application where you can see QB carrying your goods or your shopping bags or your bins or what have you for you. So if you have somebody who would have difficulty carrying an armful of groceries or carrying things from A to B, you could have a small utility robot like QB do that for you, or any number of other robots that can do the same job. But those are now off the table. And again, I would point out the very constituents that the accessibility advocates are representing, they're going to be harmed by this ban on robots. So it's not a well thought out strategy, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I mean, to say some positive things about Ontario, I mean, it's manufacturing, it's very productive. And for many years, they've embraced robotics. And that's an example where, to compete on the world stage in manufacturing, automation is important. And I remember, so when I graduated, this is in 2000, and I was in Windsor, and I would go into the automotive plants, and I was working for an integrator doing robotic systems and machine vision systems. And the conversations we would have, people would be nervous about some of this technology because it was taking their jobs. Then when I left Windsor 2007, that was well underway to changing, because around 2005, there was I don't know if you remember, but the automotive market started to suffer in North America. And, so the Windsor area took quite a beating. And, that really shifted the mentality of some of the strong unions and saying, you know what, if we're going to be competitive and protect these jobs that are here, we need to adopt this technology and embrace it and be good at implementing it. And Ontario is probably one of the more productive areas of Canada, and we spend a lot of time here in Quebec, working with customers and trying to encourage the manufacturing industry to take that step forward and modernize. I think there's been, we could probably brainstorm around what's the difference in mentality, because Quebec used to be, and it's still very productive, but it used to be one of the hubs in Canada. And then, with different political events, things shifted, and that's what Toronto benefited from, and Ontario benefited from a lot of movement of businesses. But with the different raw materials we have here in Quebec, there's a lot of minerals for battery power. So we're starting to see the benefits come again.
Right.
And this is our opportunity to embrace that. And, automation, robotics is a key part of it. And, there is a nature or a talent to being able to use it and think about it right. And you can't just go from zero to hero. You got to try it. You got to use it. You're going to mess up. You're going to not use it correctly the first time. So that continuous innovation is important going forward.
And I mean, we experienced some of that very early on in my engineering career. I was involved, boy, it feels like 1,000 years ago, in we all know what Canadarm is. We know that it flew on the shuttle. We know Canadarm2 is on the International Space Station, and now Canada is contributing robot manipulators to moon missions and other planetary missions. We've had now decades of prioritizing our expertise in robotics in space, and that was, I was very proud to be involved in that, although tangentially involved in that. So some of my earliest projects involved Canadarm2, I did other work for the space station, again, tangentially. It's one of the things I can point to and be very proud of. And I think Canada at the time prioritized robotics and basically said, we are going to become a world leader. And they did. The reason we have this prominent display every time there's a space mission and astronaut spacewalk, you have the Canadian flag on that manipulator, and that's a great testament to picking a goal and setting a priority and then building industry around that. So we can do that again. We can set priorities, and again, I speak from the robotics point of view, but as you said, in industry, the tide turned from believing that the technology is a threat to employment to, well, wait a minute, it could potentially enhance opportunities. We don't have, the classic example is, we don't have elevator operators anymore because elevators became automated. Was that, the people adapted, people changed, and there are other jobs in the post elevator market, in the post elevator economy that people found. And I think the same can be said for robotics. As robotics moves out of the factory and into retailers, into agriculture, into fulfillment centers, and then finally into the home, more than just the vacuums. I mean, in a serious way, within a decade, and again, I'm just, my crystal ball is out here, but within a decade, we're likely to see a much more serious presence in the home or in day-to-day life. We'll be seeing robots among us. My sister tells a story of going to a Walmart and then turning around, and she found herself standing next to a floor cleaning robot, and it looks like a small Zamboni. It's big, and it was operating in during business hours in amongst the customers. It was full-on flashing lights and sound. So, but people, nobody was running out of the store afraid of this robot. But this is I think the beginning of this. We're at a tipping point, I like to say, that we're going to be seeing more and more of this, that it's not going to be reserved just for factories. You're going to be seeing robots do things for us in day-to-day life, or at least for my business's sake, I'd like to see that. But it's already starting. The Roomba is only the beginning. I think we're going to be seeing more and more of that in the coming years, and I would love to see Canada be at the forefront of that.
Yeah, I agree. I just finished I guess it was Disney Plus, Andor, the next, like a Star Wars series.
Oh yeah.
Right, and there's when we see them riding around on speeders. So I've been lucky. I've been able to go to the Paris Air Show, the Bourget, a few times, and there was talking about drones. There was a period of time where all of a sudden drones became part of this air show, right? So you would see the big Airbus 380s, you would see the Joint Strike Fighter there, but then all of a sudden there was this section on drones, and one company and I forget the name of the company, but they created this drone where it had 4 propellers, and it was like a single seater. So it was like take a motorcycle, put the drone propellers on it, and essentially you had a speeder.
Yeah.
And now when I look at, Star Wars and some of the vision there, I think it's brilliant. The way that they have robots integrated and helping people. And I think that could be a potential outcome of where we're heading, where they're there to help and grow life, essentially, especially if we do become multi-planetary, and that they'll play an important role in helping us.
Well, I mean, you've hit on a lot of really interesting points. Let's look at drones as an example, and there are, there's a drone on Mars. This is something that I was amazed.
There's 5, I think, right?
Are there 5 now? I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
yeah.
When they first, I remember watching the video of the first helicopter on Mars. It was essentially a drone.
Yeah.
Start up, so you could actually hear on a foreign planet, on an alien planet, the sound of a helicopter or a drone running, and then it's meant to, robotically survey and it would cover a lot more ground than a ground rover. That's amazing, and it typifies the growth in scope of one type of robot. If drones are a type of robot that went from a very, very niche area only 10 years ago. I mean, how often did you see or hear about a drone even 10 years ago to now? You can't watch a movie or TV show where they don't have overhead shots involving a drone. You have, real estate shows where, you're using drones as a way of getting these beautiful shots where you couldn't get them, or it would cost 20 times as much. You're seeing drones being used for day-to-day things like inspecting roofs. Amazon, when Amazon first floated the idea of a drone delivery system, everybody kind of chuckled and said, "Oh, that's science fiction. It's just a PR." You have drones delivering medicine now, so it's happening. We're seeing that boundary between where robots used to be and us kind of moving towards us, and eventually, we've seen it in movies, TV shows. You mentioned Star Wars, where droids cohabitate with the people, and no one thinks twice about it. To more sinister applications like in Westworld, or iRobot, or these other Hollywood creations. But the idea where we have people living and with robots in their day-to-day lives, I think we're very close to that happening, and we won't be thinking twice about it.
Yeah. And you know what? You're right. There is one drone on Mars. It's 5 rovers, I think.
Well, 5 rovers, yeah. Okay.
So there's I guess that's 6 robots. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I was also lucky to have a tour of MDA in Brampton, that built the Canada arm.
Yeah.
And that was a really cool tour where if anyone never gets a chance to go in there, they have, as you go back into the lab, you see all the pictures of the different astronauts that had participated in their missions. And, it's really going back an interesting piece of history of Canadiana.
I was involved with them when they were still called SPAR. SPAR Aerospace.
That's right.
In various corporate buyouts later, they're MDA now. And I remember taking that tour years ago as well. And again, it's something Canada can be very, very proud of. And I don't want us to lose that competitive edge. I don't want it to fall by the wayside and people forget that we have world-class robotics talent here. And if we don't support it, they won't be here for much longer. They'll go elsewhere. So it's important to keep that talent pool and that strategic advantage on our shores. So I want to see more support, if anything, for robotics. I mean, and again, I think it's going to start with niche applications, support for seniors, for disabled people, and fulfilling a need there. But I see it growing. Who likes taking things up and down stairs? I don't. And as I get older, my knees are complaining every time I take a flight of stairs. it's going to be a very common issue where we're dealing with taking things up and down stairs are going to be, if you offer a solution, I think the people will take it. And
Yeah.
I want my company to stay Canadian for as long as
Yeah.
I can. So it will require various jurisdictions to express support for this kind of technology. That's what I'm hoping to see going forward.
Now, so in your work, is there any problems that you wish you had more time to solve, that you think that are out there are fascinating and that you would love to see robots helping out in?
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was going to say if the day to day, I wish I could clone myself, or at least
Yeah. The life of a startup.
We can get to the money and capital question, which is the other
Okay.
side of the coin, but maybe towards the if we have a few minutes at the end. What problem would I love to solve? Well, it's hard to see the forest for the trees when you're focused on one problem all the time. But if you generalize the whole idea about a robot assistant for the home, and I mean the iRobot, when they developed the Roomba, was a brilliant application, something that is readily a task that can be readily automated and that can be done at a fairly low cost. And they did it successfully. And now they've built on that. And now they have quite a sophisticated robot in their Roomba that can do quite a lot. But it still can't lift anything. It can't really carry anything. It can't cook your eggs in the morning. Mm. It can't. Okay, you talk about chores that you don't want to do. Who likes cleaning the washroom? Nobody. How far away are we from a robot that can do some serious house cleaning? Yeah. That can do things like clean the toilet. That is, well, you have a robotics background. You know that's not an easy robot challenge. It's something that if you could make a solution that is still cost effective, and it might not be in the homes, hotels or schools or any place where you have a lot of washrooms to clean, would jump on that, because it's a job that nobody really wants to do, and frees up time for other people to do. Even if you're custodial staff or housekeeping staff, your time can be spent on other tasks while this machine cleans the washroom for you. So if I had to pick another task on the list of, I've had infinite time and roll the clock forward, and I'm selling tons of the stair climber, and I don't have anything to worry about. My next project might be as mundane as it sounds, a robot that cleans the washroom for you, because that's another thing that again, starting with seniors or people with mobility issues, one of the primary reasons they have to leave their homes is day-to-day ordinary household tasks become more and more challenging. And if you can offload that to a helper robot, that you can let people live in their homes, which is their preferred way of living for as long as they can, you can facilitate that with your robotic solution. So that would be, I think, an amazing thing. So that, I mean, that's just, I know it doesn't sound too sexy, but
I would want one of those right away. That's for sure, because that's a job I do not like.
Right, exactly.
It's a very important job, but one I don't like.
It's just like cleaning your floors. It's an absolutely essential job that is exactly what a robot is meant to do. Robots are meant to do tedious, repetitious, or hazardous jobs. It's certainly a tedious job that nobody wants to do. So this is something that that I would tackle. The other thing on my wish list is really coming from my wife, who's an avid gardener, and she works in the garden all the time, and she also has her sister has a winery. If you're ever in Prince Edward County, I'm going to plug her business because I think everybody should visit. Her winery is called Hinterland, And Hinterland Wine Company, they specialize in sparkling wine. They're located in Hillier, Ontario, which is in Prince Edward County. And I would love to see robots that can help out not only in the garden, but in agriculture in general. Yeah. One of the issues that I see it vicariously because my wife works for the winery as well. The problem in getting local labor. Virtually all farms in Canada and the U.S., they depend on foreign labor, because if you depend only on local labor, you won't be able to fulfill the job is just too tough, too tedious, too there's a whole list of reasons why you can't fill those roles locally. And if you could have, and even for the people that come, so in this case, the many vineyards and soft fruit industry all over Canada, they depend on workers from places like Mexico. So these are skilled labor that come up, but because of the advantage in pay scale, they can work here and actually make a decent living working in Canadian farms. Even, and I've seen them firsthand. I've seen them working firsthand and talked to them a little bit about what they're doing. It would be great to have a technological assist, because if you think of the scale of a farm, it's bigger than 5 factories put together. The distances that have to be traversed for any one task they're huge. Yeah. So if you had something that was capable of carting from A to B, and I know this technology exists, but it's not widespread.
It isn't, but it is. Funny you bring it up, because we just released a podcast with a company, Nexus Robotics, who we happen to share a building with, and they are targeting weed picking for large scale farms, and they're going after the leafy vegetables first, because those are like carrots, cabbage. Those are ones where herbicides damage the produce. So those fields have to be hand-picked. And all the reasons you just said, you're well calibrated to the pain points. But so they have an autonomous robot that is guided by GPS, and they're deploying them as a service. So you could call up a Nexus, and they would deploy their robots to pick your weeds.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. I talked with.
There are two things that are really interesting about that. First, the application, but also the robot as a service model.
Yeah,
I think that's really, really interesting, because they're basically getting into the business of renting the robots rather than having to sell the robots.
That's right, and so they can, from the time that they uncart it or take it off the truck to the first pick, they've got a certain amount of time. They have it all benchmarked, and they make it easy for the farmer to get this job done. That's the whole reason for existence there. And then they have a bank of cameras, and they've got 3 arms, and they talk about, well, what can we do with that data too? And there's all types of fascinating follow-on. So as they're imaging, and they use AI to identify between the weeds and the produce, but you can start giving the farmer feedback. Well, how are the crops developing? Is there certain areas of the field that are underdeveloped, or is there certain areas of the field that are ready for picking? Stuff like that. So it's once you start digging
more than just pick, right? It can do. You have an asset out there that can have eyes that can inspect for you 1,000 feet away.
That's right.
So the potential for that is big, and it will grow as people tell robotics companies what their pain points are. This is what another thing, on my wish list, my grand wish list, the friendly co-developer You know, the application where you have, and you know a little bit about this, where you have a friendly site who's willing to work with you to hone your application, your use case.
Yeah.
And we just have we have just sold a unit to a company in California, one of our QB units, and their application is using it to shuttle material from point A to point B. They have a large facility, and they have these routes that are, you know, up to 300 feet long, and they get requests from people working in the line for supplies, for odds and ends, anything from a roll of tape to a screwdriver to whatever. Right now, somebody has to take time out of their routine, and they operate 24 hours, so they make over 50 trips a day. If somebody or over 3 shifts is responsible for shuttling these odds and ends back and forth, when they're taking time away from their other main duties, they have to do that. And you can quickly see that the business case becomes apparent. If you had an inexpensive little robot with a basket on top, and it does this shuttling back and forth all day long, it frees up all sorts of time from people at both ends of that task. And it's a great example of the end user identifying the need and working with us to help us refine the use case. So they've already, you know, asked us about range and how can we affix the basket, and what about safety lighting and sounds, because they have to cohabitate with a forklift, that sort of thing. So the friendly co-development partner, the end user, I think that's a dream for a lot of companies. So having the company work with you to identify their needs and then test out your technology, that would be a great thing to have.
Yeah. And you mentioned inexpensive, so I got to give a shout out to you, because I've got a few toys at home, and so the QB is one of them. But for my 6th degree of freedom arm, my robot arm, I had to go to China in this company called Elephant Robots. Oh, yeah. And so I got one of them. And then for my mobile robot, I searched around, and, you know, in terms of payload, features, and what it could accomplish, that's the reason I went with the QB. So
well, thank you very much. And I'm glad to be able to say that in the last few weeks we've done a big push to upgrade both our control app, which runs on a mobile device, as you know, and our firmware. So now we have the ability to we put in localization into our suite of capabilities, so we can use our LiDAR for more than just collision detection. We have an algorithm that we developed through research with a university here in Toronto, Toronto Metro University, formerly Ryerson. We did a project, again, funded in part by MyTax, and the algorithms that we developed from that project, we've now rolled into our software. So now it'll locate itself and correct. If you have very long paths, over time you can accumulate error in the position, in the odometry. Localization helps minimize that, so it takes a reading periodically and will correct its estimate of where it is, so that we're seeing the error over repeated paths limited to only a few centimeters over unlimited number of cycles. So we're going to be issuing. You'll be seeing that soon. We'll be issuing that.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, and we'll you support for floor plans. You can import a floor plan for your site. That's a new feature. Stop and wait, so that you can have a multi-stage path. So you're visiting multiple stations, for example, and say you're loading or unloading at different stops. You can now wait for the user to provide an input to go forward. So you can wait an indefinite amount of time, load up or unload, and then say, go ahead and finish the rest of the path. Yeah. So those are the things in our latest release. Yeah. So you'll be able to see that very soon.
Looking forward to it. Okay, so we talked a little bit about regulation, and there was a bit of a wish list in there. We talked about some of the cool or dirty jobs that you'd love to be able to tackle. And then you started into a wish list of what's next for you. What are you looking for? Is there any help that you're looking for? You mentioned maybe some funding. I'd love to hear about what's next for QRS.
Yeah, if there's, I mean, you may have interviewed other founders or people in our position at different stages of their development. We're now looking for our next round of seed funding, of an injection of capital, primarily to fund the commercialization of ROSA. So we have our initial product, which is QB, and it's gaining traction and it's gaining usage out there. But ROSA is really the flagship product. It's the basis for our patents. It's the most innovative in our suite of products. So we're looking to fund that to its next milestone, which will be getting units out to beta testing or including early adopters. So we've started the process of actively looking for investors to fund that next phase. We've actually, serendipitously, we've made contact, or they've made contact with us, some funding groups that have encouraged us to apply. But it's a tough slog. We have a lot going for us, but there are some obstacles, and I'll be perfectly frank. No pun intended. You face it, especially any entrepreneur out there. And if I could talk to myself, a 5-year younger version of myself, I would tell them, develop an app. Don't develop a hardware product. Anything that is capital intensive, like hardware, is tough because your burn rate is considerable. You have to really manage your cash flow carefully, and until you bootstrap and get a sufficient pool of revenue coming in, you're going to have to depend on outside funding. So we're in that position where we're not so capital intensive that we're looking for tens of millions. We're much more reasonable than that, but it's still a hardware product, so there's still things to buy, things to fabricate, things to stock. So that kind of plays into the strategy when you're asking for money. And the other thing is we're in that balancing point where we've demonstrated traction, we're selling products, so we've demonstrated the viability of the market, we validated the market. But for the stair climber, it's still 6, 8, 10 months away before we get to the same stage. So if we're asking for money on the basis of success with QB and our success with our ROSA prototypes, but we're not generating money from ROSA yet. So that can be a strike against us. But we're in a catch-22. We can't demonstrate that until we get funding to demonstrate that. So we're looking for, I guess, investors who can appreciate that. So and there are opportunities to offset some of the investment. We learned that we're a candidate for some top-up funding from the Ontario Centre for Innovation. They have a market readiness fund, but they only come in after as a secondary investor, so that you need to identify your primary investor first before they'll come in. But it's nice to know that you have this leverage waiting for anybody who's willing to come in as as an investor. So, you know, we're looking for investment. We're also looking for that magical co-developer partner, and somewhere there's a somebody that's operating in the assistive device space, somebody who either makes or markets or distributes complementary products like electric wheelchairs, stair lifts, anti-fall technology for homes, that we might be able to partner with and complement their existing suite of products, and build upon that partnership to get to market sooner. Yep. So that's, in a nutshell, that's where we are right now, and it's a bit of a white knuckle white knuckle phase, because
sure,
we've seen all the success that we've built up to this point, and it's I don't want to toot my own horn, but we've carried the ball a long way given our limited resources, in my opinion. We just need that, we're on the ninth and goal, football analogy, if I'm using it correctly. We need that extra boost to get to the next milestone, and that's where we're at right now.
Okay. Well, what we'll do is we'll make sure that in the show notes we have a way to reach out to you if ever there's somebody out there listening that has some advice or some help for you. I wish you the best with that.
That would be most appreciated.
Now, last question. So, if you have any free time, what do you do with it?
Sorry, I chuckle because I around this time, as we're approaching the end of the year and approach the holidays, I get to this nostalgic kind of thing. What don't I have time to do anymore?
Yeah.
And I used to do things like play the guitar. And around the holidays is really the only time, because I force myself to take at least a week off. That's basically the only time I take off during the year these days. And I force myself to pick up my guitar at least once during that time.
Okay.
I dream about I used to draw quite a bit, draw and paint. And one of my dreams is if I ever get to retire, that's what I'd do. I'd go on holidays where I would just draw and paint. And plus I have, God knows how many years of vacation that I owe my wife that we haven't been able to take. We both love to travel, and all these plans are on hold while you're building a business. So I'm really on my, when we do get some time again, I would love to be able to travel again. So
yeah, that sounds great.
That's a short answer.
Yeah. You know what? I used to play guitar too, and I've got 3 kids at home. So the concentration is it's never there for that type of pastime. The last time I played it was last Christmas, on Christmas Eve, I ended up with COVID. That's when isolation was required. So I was in my basement for what turned out to be 7 days. And I actually had time to pick up the guitar and strum a few chords, right?
The upside of being quarantined.
Yeah. You know what? I recommended isolating yourself like that. I think doing that every year for 2-3 days is great. 7 days was a little long. I got fed up, especially once
a long time. And I kept testing positive, and I was in the isolation for 14 days, and that really took a toll.
That's a good
I could see why they classify solitary confinement now as cruel and unusual punishment, because being isolated like that so all the people that have gone through worse, I can only my heart goes out to them. But you're right. I get advice from, and again, anybody who's been in this position where you're trying to grow a company, and you're you're an entrepreneur, so the risks, but sometimes you kind of pause and say, there's so many things I wish I could do, and just that if I did do them, I would feel guilty for not being at work. That's the mindset you get into. And I've had advice from people, other friends and advisors who kind of are coaching me, and they keep saying, you know, you have to take the time to kind of do some do nothing but just breathe, or read a book, or do something else other than focus on your business, because and I think I've reached the conclusion that otherwise it's all consuming. It's and you can't be, otherwise you're trading off too much of the rest of your life for it. But I'm hoping that with this next milestone that we're going to reach a tipping point where it will no longer be that case. But that's, you know, I signed up for it. I knew what I was doing.
Well, and you have a good mission too, right? Helping people in their homes, and you know, you talked about the elderly assistive and keeping people longer in their homes. So, you know, if I can understand why it becomes all consuming, because, you know, delayed gratification. If you start seeing people getting assistance from the work that you've done, I think it's really important what you're doing. You know, and there's keeping people in their homes longer. I've got an aunt who's now in a home, but she, you know, she was independent all her life, and she fought to stay in her home. And, you know, that's often the best place for people to be, until it becomes dangerous for them. But, you know, anything we can do, any help we can provide, definitely your mission is worthwhile here.
Yeah, and just to close off with that thought, one of the initial motivations for doing this was both my parents had to go into long-term care facilities earlier than we would have hoped. Primarily because of mental decline, but also because and they had lived in a two-story home for decades, and this is their home, and this is where they wanted to stay, but it became untenable. So families everywhere, this is a global problem, are facing that decision. When does it become, when do people cease to be capable of even living day to day, even if they didn't have dementia or Alzheimer's, if they would just have physical restrictions and prevent them from doing day-to-day things, they have to leave. And one of the, over and over again, you hear that the best place to age is in a place that you're used to, that's your home. And for a number of reasons. And anything I can do to spare other families going through that, or at least delay that, I feel that I've dedicated my work to something worthwhile.
Right on. Well, Frank, hey, I really appreciate your time. It's been great having this conversation with you.
My pleasure. It's been I know we've been talking about this for some time. I'm glad we're able to finally sit down and have this. It was great chatting with you.
Yeah, and I look forward to talking with you more, getting my QB going in my application. So
absolutely,
I appreciate everything.
I think of me as tech support. So
right on.
Okay, well, great, and we'll look forward to our next chat.
Right on. Thank you, Frank.
Okay, take care.
So this concludes the episode of Robotics for All podcast by AV&R. If you don't want to miss another single episode, don't forget to subscribe to our show in your favorite podcast app. Thank you very much, everyone, and we'll talk again soon.